হ্যাঁ, আমরা লাইভে আছি এখন, শুরু করুন।
Good evening, participants, honorable speakers, respected principal Dr. Arup Kumar Maiti sir, respected Dr. Unuka Mukherjee, coordinator IQC Ranaghat College, and other distinguished guests. It is my privilege to welcome you all on behalf of the Department of Botany, Ranaghat College, Ranaghat Nodia, in this 2 days national webinar, Life in the Universe and Diversity, organized jointly by Department of Botany, Ranaghat College in collaboration with IQAC Ranaghat College. I hope that this webinar may help us to enrich ourselves through the speeches delivered by our honorable speakers, and we all enjoyed these 2 days through the feeling of togetherness during this period of the COVID pandemic situation. I welcome all of you once again. Before starting our program, I would like to share a change which happened in our program schedule. Dr. Neera Sen Sarkar, Assistant Professor in Botany of University of Kolkata, will deliver her lecture tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. And today, Dr. Nobin Kumar Dhol, Senior Scientist, CSIR Bhubaneswar, will deliver his lecture at 7:50 p.m. Now, I request Dr. Unuka Mukherjee, Coordinator IQAC Ranaghat College, to deliver his introductory lecture. Dr. Unuka Mukherjee, please.
শোনা যাচ্ছে তো?
হ্যাঁ, audible. হ্যাঁ, শোনা যাচ্ছে।
It is a special moment for Department of Ranaghat College, as for the first time the department is going to organize a national webinar. On behalf of IQAC, I welcome the distinguished speakers of today's webinar, Dr. Devi Prasad Duwari, Dr. Nobin Kumar Dhal, Dr. Vasant Kumar Singh, and Dr. Neera Sen Sarkar, who will participate tomorrow. I am thankful to all the speakers as they have found time for us. They will enlighten us all with their valuable talks. As we all know, it is a trying time for all academic institutions, and like other institutions, Ranaghat College also tries to keep up the academic activity online, and it is really a challenging task, but somehow we try to do so. So far as the webinar is concerned, actually it is the webinar of botany, and I am particularly not associated with botany, but like everybody, I also grow with plants, live with plants. So naturally, any discussion regarding the science of plants or botany must interest us all. It is actually a moment of pride for Ranaghat College, as the distinguished speakers are present today for presenting their valuable talks. Actually, what we find in this situation, that life becomes rather strained, life becomes rather challenging nowadays, and so far scientific matters regarding life, that is the topic of the scientists, topic of the researchers, botanists. So today's topic of the seminar, that is life in diversity, life in universe and diversity. So that is bound to be interesting, as it is concerned with all the living beings of the world. I would not like to prolong my speech and waste time for long because the participants are waiting for the main business session of this today's webinar. They are eager to listen to the distinguished speakers who will present their talks today. I am sure that students, teachers of botany will be benefited and updated through this webinar. Finally, let me convey best wishes to all. And with these words, I would like to take leave of you. Thank you.
I request our principal sir, Dr. Arup Kumar Maiti, to deliver his welcome address. Respected Dr. Maiti sir, please.
আমি unmute করছি।
Dear students and participants, good evening to one and all. It gives me great pleasure to grace all of your presence in the today's webinar organized by Department of Botany of Ranaghat College in coordination with IQAC. It is a glorious moment to extend my warm wishes on behalf of Ranaghat College. I want to convey my heartfelt gratitude to all speakers for accepting the invitation and presiding over the 2 days webinar. We are honored this evening by the presence of Dr. Devi Prasad Duari, Dr. Neera Sen Sarkar, Dr. Nobin Kumar Dhal, and Dr. Basant Kumar Singh, who have done us great favor by giving consent to enlighten us with their talks through webinar on life in the universe and diversity. The COVID-19 and lockdown hampered the regular academic activity, and we don't know when things will get normal. For this reason, we have to carry on academic activity online. As a part of this effort, the teachers of Department of Botany have come forward to organize the webinar with their sincere effort in this challenging time. I am greatly thankful to them. I am also thankful to the members of IPSC and other supporting staff who have played an important role in organizing the webinar. I truly believe the engagement of students and faculty from different colleges and universities attending today will certainly make this webinar fruitful and productive. I feel honored to welcome all the participants and my fellow colleagues for taking a keen part in this important webinar. I'm sure that you all will feel enriched with knowledge after completion of this event. I welcome you all once again to the webinar and hope that you all will have a great time ahead. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Sir, for your valuable speech. Now, it's the time to enter in the technical session of our webinar. In the first day, we have 2 lectures from 2 distinguished scientists in the field of, one from the astrophysics and second from the botany and ethnobotany. The keynote address will be delivered by Dr. Devi Prasad Duari, Director Research and Academics, MP Birla Institute of Fundamental Research, Kolkata. I convey my sincere thanks to Dr. Duari, eminent Indian scientist with international fame, for accepting our invitations to deliver his valuable lecture in spite of his busy schedule. Hope all of us enjoy his lecture. Before his lecture, I request my senior colleague, Dr. Vivekananda Mukherjee, to introduce our honorable speaker, Dr. Devi Prasad Mukherjee, sir. Dr. Vivekananda Mukherjee, please.
Mukherjee from the Department of Botany, Ranaghat College. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce you one of the leading scientists of India, Dr. Devi Duwari. Dr. Duwari is a director, academic and research, MP Birla Institute of Fundamental Research, Kolkata. Dr. Duwari was a student of physics at Jadavpur University and did his PhD from Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics under the guidance of famous scientist Dr. J.B. Narlikar. He was a visiting fellow of TIFR and assistant professor of University of Manchester, UK, and presently he is a director, research and academics, MP Birla Institute of Fundamental Research, Kolkata. He was awarded the Best Thesis Award of the Astronomical Society of India in 1993-94. He is a fellow of Royal Astronomical Society and member of so many organizations like International Astronomical Society, etc. He is a member of Advisory Committee of Science and Technology, Government of India. Despite his busy schedule, he has kindly spared us some time to deliver lecture on life in the universe. I, on behalf of Department of Botany and Ranaghat College, thanks Dr. Devi Duwari for his lecture in our platform. Now, Dr. Devi Duwari delivering his lecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a wonderful introduction. It's a privilege for me to be invited by the Ranaghat College Botany Department to be a part of this two-day effort, a national seminar, rather webinar, and I'm really thankful to them that they have asked me to give the keynote address. First and foremost, as mentioned by my previous speaker, the time at present is very difficult. We are all passing through a crisis, and this crisis has brought us certain avenues, certain issues, which most of us think are more precious than anything else, even more than our profession. But to be very frank, the only way forward is to remain positive, because this pandemic, the situation, is almost an enemy which cannot be seen. So everybody is afraid what can happen to them or their near and dear ones. So in this respect, my personal feeling is that to keep oneself as much positive as possible. And out of this positive feeling, we should try to understand, to know more areas of research, of academics, about nature in a much bigger way. I'm happy that at least I can see there are 42 participants for this webinar. I would have loved to have more, mostly the students, but whatever, let me start my lecture with my presentation by the name Life in the Universe. If you can give me some 10 seconds, I will really go to that. The topic of today's lecture is life in the universe. As I was telling, everybody around is now discussing about life in the moment of crisis. But from a botanical point of view, from a biological point of view, what does life mean to us? How did it happen? How did it originate? That will be the main issue of this particular lecture. So I will try to divide my lecture into three parts. The first part, the major part, will be the universe as we see it. Then, obviously, the question of life on Earth, its evolution, its origin, that should be discussed. And then, in a brief way, I will try to talk about the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Let us now first talk about our home, solar system. If I take the solar system, the sun is at the central point, which is providing all the energy for every form of life thriving on Earth. But apart from Earth, there are 8 major planets, and there are dwarf planets, asteroids, meteorites. Amazingly, each of them has played a role in Earth becoming a habitable zone or a habitable planet. And that is what we are going to discuss. If we take our nearest star, our sun, most of us know that sun is a ball of gas. If I take a football, pump in a lot of colored gas, cut open the football, will the gas inside remain like a ball? It will diffuse out. Then how come sun being a ball of gas is not diffusing out into the sky? According to the scientists, 460 crore years back, a huge cloud of gas and dust was floating in space. This cloud, in terms of number of particles, were made up of 91% hydrogen, 8% helium, and 1% rest other elements. The average temperature of this gas cloud was minus 240 degrees centigrade. At minus 240 degrees centigrade, out of the 4 fundamental forces of nature, only one type of force comes into play, and that is the force of self-gravity. The force of self-gravity will attract the periphery of this gas cloud towards the center. As the gas goes towards the center, the central density rises, the pressure builds up, and temperature rises. And starting from minus 240 degrees centigrade, the temperature rose to a fascinating level of 1.5 crore degrees centigrade, which is enough to make 4 hydrogen nuclei or 4 protons come together, fuse together, and produce a helium nucleus. This thermonuclear fusion reaction is very difficult to control on Earth, but inside the sun, in a very regulated manner, when 4 hydrogen nuclei converts to helium nucleus, huge amount of energy is produced. As the energy tries to come out, it produces a back pressure called radiation pressure towards outside. This radiation pressure, when it actually balances and cancels the inward force of gravity, sun being a ball of gas remains hanging there for millions of years. It's an amazing event. 2 opposite forces continuously canceling each other is making sun alive, and that is the reason also that we are alive also. If you take the sun is not a very smooth object. As we try to look into the early morning or late evening sun, it looks like an egg yolk, but tremendous amount of explosions are happening on the surface of the sun every second. Thousands of tons of gas are getting thrown up from the surface, making huge arch and loops fall back onto the surface. If you see this picture, the cavity that you see inside the loop, you'll be amazed to know 3 Earth can go side by side inside that cavity. So sun can become dangerous as well. And we know that from the surface of the sun, on an average, 16 lakh tons of charged particle are coming out every second. These charged particles, as they move through the magnetic field of the sun, they produce a milky white radiation, which is called the corona. Nothing to do with our coronavirus today, but corona, the word corona means crown in Latin. And these charged particles, the average velocity is 450 kilometers per second. With that velocity, they have enough momentum, enough energy. If they hit any atom or molecule, it will instantaneously break apart. So basically, tomorrow morning when the sun comes out, if I stand on the sun, the charged particle coming from the surface of the sun, the moment they hit my body, within fraction of a second, my whole body should disintegrate. But I'm alive. How? Because by accident, by almost chance happening, Earth behaves like a bar magnet. Around the Earth, like a peels of an orange, there is a magnetic shield. These charged particles, they come from the sun, hit the magnetic shield, cannot enter, flow past the Earth, and we think we are the king and queen of ourselves. But this magnetic field actually has provided the proper environment for life to exist and thrive. But if you remember your childhood days of drawing the magnetic lines of force of a bar magnet, in the northern and southern magnetic polar region, there is a gap. And this charged particle, they enter through this gap, interact with the air molecules and make them glow. And what did we get to see? Auroras. Aurora borealis in north, Aurora australis in southern hemisphere. And this tells us that sun is interacting with earth every second of our existence. So we take sun for granted, but sun is a very, very big player in our lives. How did the solar system happen? According to the scientists, this huge cloud of gas and dust was floating in space with a spin. Because of self-gravity, as it was becoming smaller, because of the spin, because of the conservation of angular momentum, the spherical ball became a disk. And at the central part of the disk, when the temperature rose to 1.5 crore, sun was born. And in the outer periphery, where the temperature was less, gas and dust condensed, coagulated, coalesced, and has given birth to our planetary system. So initially, this coagulation, contraction, they gave birth to very hot spherical objects. For millions of years, the heat was dissipated, and at least the first four, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, became rocky, became terrestrial, whereas Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune are mostly made up of gas. Now, in addition to the planets, there are other objects. Because in case of planets also, we know very exciting news are coming out from the scientists that they have probably found proof of water ice on Mars. Probably there is a huge ocean of liquid water inside one of the moons of Jupiter called Europa, one of the moons of Saturn called Enceladus. And on Earth, we know every drop of water can give rise to millions of life forms. So, life is not the only property of Earth. According to the scientists, life is everywhere, but we haven't discovered them. In that context, apart from planets, there are asteroids. 1801, Italian astronomer Giuseppe Piazzi discovered a piece of rock, typically 900 kilometers in diameter, between the orbit of Mars and Jupiter. He named it Ceres. People thought a new planet has been discovered. But within a couple of years, three more, Pallas, Vesta, and Juno, each around 500 kilometers in diameter, were discovered in the same region. People realized a new class of object has been discovered. And starting from 1801 till today, thousands and thousands and thousands pieces of rock, 10, 20, 30, 100 kilometers in size, have been discovered between the orbit of Mars and Jupiter, and they are called asteroids. Very, very important part they have played in the early part of our solar system and also in the history of our Earth. If you take this photograph, this is a NASA representation of asteroids. Each green dot is a discovered asteroid. And each red dot, they are called asteroids. Their speciality, their orbit intersects the orbit of Earth. That means Earth is going on its own around the sun. They can come and hit the Earth at any point of time, anywhere. If that happens, believe me, the scale of devastation and destruction will be so tremendous. But it also has its positive effect as well, which we'll discuss a little later. Then comes comets. Recently, last 2-3 days, this Neowise comet is creating a lot of excitement, at least in the social media. Comets, what are they? In the outer part of the solar system, where the average temperature is minus 150, minus 200 degrees centigrade, big chunks of ice, water ice, ammonia ice, dry ice, they are floating in space. These ice chunks coming together through soft collisions, through the regulation of ice process, they became bigger. When their size became typically 5 to 12 kilometers in size, they also started going around the sun in extremely elliptic orbit. In their elliptic orbit, as they came closer, because of the sun's heat, the ice got melted and created million kilometers long tail. So every time they come close to the sun, the certain aspect of certain part of the ice gets melted, no doubt about it. They also have played an important role, as I will discuss later. Now let us travel very fast to the realm of stars. Here, each picture is a true color picture of the sky. You may be asking the question why we cannot see these pictures when you look into the sky. The answer is human eye has something called perception of vision. Within 1/10 of a second, whatever amount of light enters through our pupil and falls on the retina, the optic nerve immediately takes them to our back of our head at the optic lobe to create an image. Our eyes cannot integrate or add light. If our eyes were like a CCD camera, like our mobile phone, looking into a particular direction in the sky for 10, 20, 30 hours, we would have seen every dot as if in the sky is star. And there are huge gas clouds of all colors, all hues, all saturation, and sky actually is a wonderful place. If I talk about the birth of the stars, stars are born from interstellar clouds of gas and dust. What do I mean by the word interstellar clouds? When we look into the sky between two stars, it's totally black, dark, as if nothing is there. But that is not the issue, because if we have the capacity to integrate light through our eyes, we would have seen huge amount of gas clouds are floating between the stars. These are called interstellar clouds of gas and dust. In the sky, there are regions where one can see these clouds and also star formation processes. Let me just give you a glimpse of the true beauty of nature, an image of an interstellar cloud in its true beauty and true color. Just to give you an idea, these sort of clouds can give birth to 1,000 solar systems. Don't mix it with the cloud in our skies. Our sky is a third planet from the sun and the atmosphere. But this clouds can give rise to huge number of stellar systems like our solar system. For example, take this. It's an amazing, because if you notice in the top region, there are these three nodules. Do you know what is the size of each of the nodule? Each nodule inside is containing a fully formed solar system. Think of the size of the whole big cloud. So as if the universe has thrown up a challenge to the human intellect. You want to understand me? Try and understand. It's really a challenge to the whole human race. If you are born, you have to die. Stars also die. But stars die in different ways depending upon their initial mass of formation. If I consider sun, what happens to it? Sun or stars whose initial mass is 1 to 8 times the mass of sun, how do they die? Now, sun is alive because it is burning hydrogen to helium at the center. How much hydrogen is present? Scientists have done the calculation, have shown sun will be burning hydrogen to helium for another 500 crore years or 5 billion years. After 500 years, when all the hydrogen gets converted to helium, the thermonuclear fusion reaction will stop. As the thermonuclear fusion reaction stops, the energy generation stops. As the energy generation stops, the outward radiation pressure stops. But gravity will always be there. So the star starts contracting. As the star contracts, because of the contraction, the temperature in the envelope region near and just below the surface starts increasing. And ultimately, it reaches a fascinating temperature of 1.5 crore, which is enough to burn 4 hydrogen nuclei, fused 4 hydrogen nuclei to produce a helium nucleus. And the reaction that was happening in the core will start happening near the surface or below the surface. And when that happens, huge amount of energy is again produced, heat is produced, and gas, when heated up, will expand, and the star begins to expand. So after 500 crore years later, our sun will expand and expand and expand, and ultimately reach the orbit of Earth. Yes, Mercury, Venus, Earth will cease to exist. Much before that, we will go inside the sun when that happens. This type of a star, which is tremendously bloated and big, is called a red giant. Then at the central region, if we look, because of the gravitational contraction, the central temperature slowly rises to around 10 crore degrees centigrade or around 100 million degrees centigrade. At 100 million degrees centigrade, 3 helium nucleus come together, fuse together, and produce a carbon nucleus. 2 helium produces a beryllium, 1 beryllium with 1 helium produces a 12 carbon. And when this reaction starts, again heat is generated, again energy tries to come out, produces a back pressure, the star halts, the central region halts its contraction. But soon, all the helium gets converted to carbon. Then the inside again becomes smaller. But since the initial mass of the star was 1 to 8 times the mass of sun, it is not enough that at that stage to produce more gravitational pressure to increase the temperature to thousands of crores of degrees centigrade. Because at thousands of crores of degrees centigrade, carbon fuses to other elements. So the inside becomes a hot ball of carbon. And in the sky, like a very bright dot, it becomes what is known as a white dwarf. By that time, the outer layer that has become pulsating, and one after another, shell after shell of the outer layer gets discharged in the interstellar medium. And this mechanism has given rise to a tremendously complex physico-chemical process, and that is very important for life to ultimately happen. This I will discuss later. This is a wonderful picture, or rather pictures of 2 planetary nebulae. Because when the outer region becomes bigger, it slowly starts getting detached from the central region and creates a cloud-like structure, which is called planetary nebula. The word nebula means cloud. Why planetary? Because at the formation stage of the stellar system, it was out of this disk of gas and dust planets were formed. So at the death part of the star, again this cloud is forming. But you see here one interesting point. You see the shells of material coming out. It was almost 25, 30 years back when me and my small group, we were investigating how these shells propagate as they're discharged into interstellar medium. And amazingly, we found out that these shells are moving at a speed of typically 3 to 8 Mach. Mach is the speed of sound. And at that speed, the shock that is created by these shells, the shock front becomes very hot. But just behind the shock front, because of the adiabatic cooling process, temperature drops drastically. And initially through computer simulations, around 95, 96, our group could show that molecules can form, which was earlier never believed that star envelope or the atmosphere can produce molecules. And lo and behold, out of the 72 molecules we could predict, 68 were discovered by subsequent observations of this planetary nebula region, and they are mostly in infrared characteristics. So you see, these molecules, if I show you, it will be amazed. And this also gives a hint of a very vibrant, thriving subject area called astrochemistry, which is the study of the synthesis of molecules in space and their use in determining the properties of the interstellar medium. And as I told you, you'll be amazed because to know about these molecules, see them. Most of them are organic molecules. That means if somebody tells you that in our solar system there is life and nowhere else, I think he's a little stupid, because most of the stars at their end phase, after they around when they die, they produce the raw biotic material for life to happen later in a different place. So the death of stars is actually the beginning of the process of life in most of the cases. Now, if I take stars with a bigger mass, what happens to them? Stars whose initial mass is 8 to 25 times the mass of Sun. At the end phase, when hydrogen gets converted to helium, mostly in the core, it contracts, temperature rises. Helium gets contracted, the temperature rises and gets converted to carbon. Then since the mass is more, again the contraction takes place, and from carbon, oxygen, silicon, sulfur, one after another, elements are produced. And when iron is reached at the core, it cannot go farther. Because you all know iron has the highest binding energy. Howsoever pressure and temperature you give, iron will not fuse to anything else. As a result, the central part of the star takes the shape of a peels of an onion. At the center, there is an iron core, hydrogen layer, helium, carbon, oxygen, slowly one after another, and then at the inside, the very solid iron core. When the thermonuclear fusion reaction stops, gravity is still there. So all these layers will start falling towards the iron core. And the poor iron has nowhere to go. So it tries to contract, but becomes incompressible beyond a limit. And then all these layers with a tremendous force, as they slam onto the iron core, they get a kick at the recoil. And there is an implosion, which is called the supernova explosion. And at the point of explosion, huge amount of material, tremendous temperature occurs. And at that force, that temperature, starting from iron 56 in the periodic table, all the naturally occurring elements in the periodic table gets produced in a fraction of a second. And these elements, since they are produced in a fraction of a second, they cannot be produced in huge quantities. They have got a special name. They are called rare earth element. Yes. If you ask yourself that our blood is red, where from it is getting this red coloration? From the iron. If you ask yourself the question, where from a single iron atom has come into my bloodstream? The answer is through my food, through nourishment. Where in the food it has come? The answer is, if I'm a vegetarian, I've eaten the plant, from there it has come. If I'm a non-vegetarian, I've eaten the goat, which has eaten the plant, and from there it has come. Where in the plant it has come? From the soil. Where in the soil it has come? We know deep down the earth, there are huge mines. Maybe somehow, defying gravity, it has percolated from the inner region to the surface. But where in the mines it has come? Because, my friend, the average temperature of space is minus 220, minus 240 degrees centigrade. And to produce higher elements, you need millions and millions of degrees centigrade. Subscribed theory of the universe, Big Bang hypothesis, only two elements are produced just after the birth of the universe, hydrogen and helium. Then, where from they have come? You'll be amazed to know each atom of iron in your blood, each atom of calcium in your bones, atom by atom, were literally created millions of years back inside a star. So, in the truest sense of the term, we are made up of star dust. We are stellar children. We are star children. And that connects our life, our soul to some extent, and our thoughts to the distant stars. And the explosion, if you want to see a real photograph, just see a single star glowing apart. And each of these colors is actually showing us different chemicals, different elements, and how they get produced in this explosion. So you see, in both of these cases of stellar death, low mass stars, stars with initial mass 1 to 8 times the mass of Sun, or medium mass stars, stars whose initial mass is 8 to 25 times, each follows a different evolutionary trajectory. But at the end, both in the case of planetary nebula and in the case of supernova explosion, they synthesize elements. They synthesize the chemistry and make it more complex. And each time, each cycle of death of a star produces more complex chemistry in our universe. And it is an amazing understanding in the recent times that if you take the whole periodic table, apart from hydrogen and helium and the naturally occurring synthetic elements, every element has been produced in astrophysical scenario or events or by astrophysical objects. So, whatever our body is made up of, as I just mentioned, hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, calcium, magnesium, zinc, atom by atom, each has been received from the star. So with this picture, if I take out our mind to a greater distance, our galaxy, which is called the Milky Way, it is a system of 20,000 crore stars. Looks like the shape of a spiral. Diwali ka jo charki hota hai. And there are spiral arms coming out from the central region. And we are not at the central region, though each human being tries to think himself as very important, but neither our Earth nor our Sun is central part to anything. We are 28,000 light years from this central region of our Milky Way galaxy in a small region of space called the Orion Arm. And the huge amount of research that has gone on in astrochemistry, now this time, not only to use the chemical enrichment of interstellar medium by stellar nucleosynthesis, but how that has enriched the chemistry of the galaxy. And there is a very, very important subject area called the chemical evolution of galaxies. Now, in our universe, not only spiral galaxy, there are different types of galaxies depending upon their structure as we look out into the cosmos. Spiral galaxies, then spiral galaxies with a bar region called bird spiral, then lenticular, a disk galaxy without any spiral arms, then elliptical, almost like an ellipsoid, and an irregular galaxy with no particular shape and size. And then we go deeper, we see the whole universe is scattered with galaxies, but not very randomly, from one end of the universe to the other end, as if filaments, chains of galaxies form. They crisscross each other, and sometimes there is nothing in between. So there are voids, and there are clusters and superclusters making chains and filaments. And my friend, this picture, I think, is an amazing picture. Here, each dot is a galaxy. And that tells you, in the vast expanse of space, innumerable galaxies are scattered across the universe. Each galaxy has 20,000, 10,000, 1,000 crore stars. And out of those stars, quite a number of stars will have planets going around them. Quite a number of planets will be such a distance from the star, liquid water may be present in them. And liquid water is a signature of life. So now you can imagine for yourself how many life forms are spread across the universe. If you go to the largest scale, our universe in a 3-dimension looks like a soap bubble. The surface of the bubble is formed out of galaxies, and inside there is nothing, that is called void. So, in a very nutshell, if we think about our universe, about our cosmos, it's an amazing place. But in the last 200 years, telescopes, instruments, photometer, spectrometer, radio astronomy, space-based X-ray, ultraviolet, gamma ray astronomy, infrared astronomy, they have given us an enormous amount of data about our cosmic environment, about the cosmos in its deepest depth. But one question remains very, very exciting and very bright. Where did we come from? Are we alone in the universe? Because time and again, philosophers, thinkers, scientists, young minds have bothered about this question: who are we? Where from we have come? How did we originate on Earth? And this has given rise to a very, very important question: are we alone? After the initial introduction of the stars and the galaxies and the interstellar clouds and the chemistry, you can definitely say that the physicists, the chemists, the biological scientists, and the mathematician all coming together has given us the present day understanding that we are not alone in the universe. There is huge amount of life in the universe, but we haven't seen. So what is life? To me, life is essentially a process, a biochemical or an electrochemical process. Why I'm using this word electrochemical? Because we know most of our responses, our stimuli, is basically impulses, electric impulses. But how come from the brain, these electric impulses from our synapses, from our spinal cord, they distribute through our body? Our body is not made up of copper wires or conductors. So here, each cell, it is basically a cell wall filled with a lot of electrolytes that becomes a conductor. And this conductors produces the pathway for all the impulses that our brain gives for us to act. So it's an amazing biochemical or an electrochemical factory. But the special set of requirements for something to be alive is that living things grow, evolve, and reproduce. Living things are highly organized chemical factories, and living things, they respond to their environment. So according to me, in a very brief way, these are the basic aspects of a life. If you take the human body, the Earth's crust, the Earth's atmosphere, and the sun, see for yourself, the chemistry is so different. So just saying that human body originated in our solar system because of the Earth's atmosphere and its interaction with the material on the Earth, Earth's crust, our life was formed. But you see the chemistry of all these four regions: oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, are totally different ratios at different layers, and including human body. So the question becomes more intriguing and important. If I now consider the nature of life, 99% of atoms in human body are just from four elements: hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen. The large amount of hydrogen and oxygen in living organisms indicates that there is high percentage of water it has. And because of its carbon's unique ability to build complex molecules, electrovalent, covalent, it is a perfect building block for complex structure. Silicon is another one, but carbon is a much more stable sort of originator of complex molecules. And as I mentioned, water, the most important liquid in the universe from the perspective of Earth. It acts as a solvent. Don't forget, 0 to 100 degrees centigrade, it is liquid. Any salt dissolved in it produced an electrolytic solution. So acts as a solvent over a wide range of temperature. It helps in maintaining many vital cell functions and reasons for life to thrive on oceans first. And 40% of plants and 70% of animal weight is nothing but water. So if I now consider the question of origin of life on Earth, to understand the origin of life, one must understand the early history of interaction among these four elements, which forms 99% of our body: carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen. But we also need complex molecules. They are the requirements for life, because not only they perform very complex methodologies, the complex processes, but they act as a storage for information. We know each life, more complex it is, relies on huge amount of information in their whole chemical system. And to have a good storage for those huge amount of information, complex molecules are needed. The simplest molecule required for life, as you all know, because you are all from biological sciences, amino acids. There are only 20 amino acids found in the living organisms, which contains 10 to 27 atoms of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen. And several hundred amino acids can combine to form proteins. If I go to the next level of complex molecules, obviously, deoxyribose nucleic acid, that is DNA and RNA. And what is a DNA? Two strands wound around each other in a spiral. The strands are connected at many points by molecules called as bases. Living systems uses only 4 types of bases: adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine: A, G, C, and T. This DNA contains the genetic information in a long sequence of base pairs. When the rungs of the twisted ladder split and DNA reproduces itself, this genetic information is copied exactly. And the sequences of bases along a strand of a DNA represents the beautiful message we call the genetic code. If you take a typical strand of DNA, there are 3 into 10 to the power 10 atoms in a single strand of DNA, containing the genetic code by the sequence of the bases. And the central function is to transmit an organism's genetic information. And amazingly, it can also replicate itself. Each sequence of several hundred bases that codes for an inherited trait is called a gene. But how did these molecules evolve on Earth? Amazingly, till today, nobody knows for sure. From molecules to living cells. But amazingly, the point when a complex assemblage of molecules deserves to be called a life form is a matter of conjecture. Because if I divide my body into each atom or molecule and put them in a box, can I produce myself? Can I produce life? No. So it's a complex assemblage and it's a conjecture. So the Earth story, if I consider, Earth formed about 4.5 billion years ago. In the atmosphere, there was carbon and nitrogen, but no hydrogen or oxygen. During the first 100 million years, Earth was bombarded by huge rocks, which vaporized the ocean and large amount of the Earth's crust. And then, if I now really look into the depth, I think something has happened. It has stopped working. Yeah, right. Let me check. Yeah. Materials rich in hydrogen and oxygen and complex organic molecules arrived by comets and other objects. So you see, meteorites and comets have played a tremendously important role in shaping today's Earth. Most of the water today present on Earth has been brought by the comets, meteorites, and other objects crashing onto the baby Earth. For next 50 crore years, aggregating complex organic molecules into cell structures happened. Water was necessary because for this biochemical evolution, it provided a liquid medium in which materials can move and stick together. It can act, as I mentioned earlier, as solvents over a wide range of temperature used for transporting material from one part of the cell to the other part, and also, very importantly, transmit electrochemical signals. And cells of all living creatures are aquatic, you must be knowing. Any organism is merely a protective shell filled with millions of aquatic cells. Now again, if we now consider the biological process, a very, very important aspect. Biological processes cannot develop unless they are set apart from the environment and protected from dilution. If a chance happening, a chance chemistry gets diluted by interacting with the environment, then it never gets a chance to produce higher levels of complex chemistry. So if you consider in our case, the observation has told us that heating of dry amino acids, one can produce protein molecules, and when water is added to it, they become transformed into something called proteinoids, round cell-like objects. And these proteinoids, mixed with water solution with other complex molecule at proper environment, proper chemistry, and proper temperature, accumulate into cell-side clusters called co-sarvettes. And it started happening in the oceans. And the high tide used to bring those things, the water used to go down, they used to get stranded into small pools. And due to sunlight, as the water evaporated, they became more thickened. The atmosphere of these small pools, water pools, became more and more dense. And evaporation of water in tidewater pools with co-sarvettes provided a high concentration of amino acids, proteins, and other molecules. These cells in the organic broth reacts with the fluid in the pool, accumulating more molecules, growing more complex, and evolve into a biochemical system capable of reproducing and increasing in complexity. The process may take in excess of 500 million years, right? So it can take a long time for things to happen in that way. If we consider the early cell-like structures, the advantages of a cell-like structure was it was confining the organic molecules to increase the rate of reaction. It encourages evolution of cooperative relationship, which is very, very important. We know a tissue, each tissue for each organ is different. And each tissue, each group of tissues, they work in tandem for a particular purpose with a particular focus. And that is some sort of a cooperative relationship. And it also, the pre-cell, the cell wall, isolated the contents from the outside world, facilitating naturally selection among RNA molecules. So today we know how does a cell look, but this complex structure took millions of years to evolve from the complex molecules, from the different amino acids, from the different higher order chemistry. If you consider the Earth's earliest life forms, the earliest biological system probable of independent lives were probably bacteria or prokaryotes. Cells with no nuclei, a single DNA strand with typically around 1,000 genes. Scientists believe around 3.8 billion years back, they thrived on our Earth. Then 3.5 to 3.6 billion years back, stromatolites. Even today in Africa and Australia and the shore region near the sea beaches, you can see these cabbage-like mats of sediments rimmed with bacteria and algae, right? And these Australian stromatolites flourished in a very crazy environment where there was no oxygen. They metabolized hydrogen sulfide, and they have found proofs of methane-producing bacteria around 3.4 billion years back in South Africa. For 200 crore years, prokaryotes ruled the Earth's ocean, evolved using organic compounds in water plus hydrogen sulfide as energy source. Then, that magic moment, the evolution of the process of photosynthesis. In one single stroke, the energy inside the sun, locked inside the sun, becomes available for life to survive and to subsist. Because we know each work, each activity, each interaction within us requires energy, and that energy comes from the sun. So the photosynthesis process started a new era of life and a new evolutionary process of life As it got locked into plants, glucose were produced, and those glucose basically produced the energy requirements. And also, photosynthesis is the release of oxygen. The release of oxygen in the atmosphere. So with the solar radiation, the oxygen combined with another oxygen molecule to give rise to ozone, which blocked ultraviolet radiation. Because it is tremendously important, ultraviolet radiation is deadly for life. No life can occur if there is a tremendous amount of ultraviolet radiation. Nowadays, we are killing coronavirus with ultraviolet radiation. So life could thrive because there was an envelope of ozone which blocked the ultraviolet radiation. Then 1.4 billion years back, eukaryotes ruled the earth. Nucleus with a DNA, complex cell function, oxygen metabolism. At that time, expansion of life forms from sea onto the land. And then around 250 crore years back, plants started happening. Trees started growing. And at that time, 250 crore years back, when the Earth's atmosphere was 20% carbon dioxide, hardly any oxygen, slowly carbon dioxide decreased and the oxygen level increased, and ultimately today it has become a little more than 20%. So the whole oxygen metabolism system happened because of the presence of oxygen, which only occurred 250 crore years back on Earth. And the movement of life onto dry land happened through lichens, symbiotic combinations of algae and fungi, and they are probably some of the first organisms. In a Cambrian era, first hard-bodied sea creatures, trilobites, 60 crore years back, and then around 45 crore years back, plants began to spread across the continents. And how the evolution, the pathway of life was happening. A very, very important person in this respect, Darwin. In his Origin of Species, he mentioned, it is because of the process of very complex, complicated, not even fully understood even today, of the process of natural selection, evolution occurred. Basically, it is the fitness needed to survive. You have to be fit to survive, right? Survival of the fittest. And through an amoeba, through different forms of life, through lizards, through reptiles, ultimately human form was formed. Amazing story. And amazingly, another aspect, from the birth of the earth till today, 5 times, 6 times, complete extinction occurred. And amazingly, nobody knows the reason definitely. Whenever there was an explosion of number of species, the natural resources were becoming scarce, something or other happened, extinction occurred. And again, birth of new forms of life, evolution of new types of life. This is an amazing, as if our earth, our system is alive. Lot of efforts went on to understand how life originated from earth. Taking the most basic elements present at the early earth, like hydrogen, methane, ammonia, or water. Could they produce some way or other in the present atmosphere at that time life? And one of the best examples is the Miller-Urey experiment in the late 1950s, when they took all these chemicals and discharged them with tremendously high voltage of electric spark, simulating the lightning. For 72 hours almost, they found there is a black jelly-like substance, and when they observed, analyzed amino acids, lo and behold, but not the 20 amino acids that goes on to produce life on Earth, and not in the proper proportion as well. Not only that, it is debated that whether Earth's primitive atmosphere has those chemicals and those environment that they have taken in for granted. Then, obviously, a new concept started happening, new ideas. But a famous quote from Carl Sagan, The building blocks of life represents only the notes of the music, not the music itself. So how these notes of the music were arranged in a sequence to give birth to life, that remains a question. Open in Halden theory, they talked about complex molecules coming out of simple molecules and forming aggregates, giving rise to protocells, and somehow become self-replicating system of a cell. But they also couldn't prove beyond doubt whatever their theory suggested. And the current bubble hypothesis. In the water, complex molecules, they get evaporated, goes up, again, comes down through rain, but through chemistry, giving rise to protocells and somehow become self-replicating system of the cell. Hello, I think my voice is coming back to me. Somebody is playing the recording. Can you stop the voice of the recording? Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And these complex molecules, as they do this cycle from the volcanic ashes inside the ocean to the water in the atmosphere, by lightning, by by heat, become more complicated. But that also, till today, nobody could prove for sure that was the process. So scientists started. Please stop the yes, voice.
Continue, sir. I mute it.
So people started looking into the cosmos, in the dark depth of the skies, because we have realized, as we have discussed in the first part of this lecture, stars come out of diffuse cloud and they end their life again in diffuse cloud. But in this process, the chemistry goes through a complete change and overall a synthesis. And whether this complicated chemistry came down to Earth by the tremendous amount of collision that occurred at the earlier part of the solar system, can they be responsible? Because from external sources, comets, asteroids, and meteorites, as they were analyzed, they were found huge amount of organic molecules. 1969, Murchison meteorite, 74 amino acids were found, 55 of them extraterrestrial. All bases used in DNA and RNA were found. Simple sugars and fatty acids were found. So, what we consider as the dark depth of space is a cauldron, is a chemical cauldron, where there is a huge amount of churning of material into more complex and complicated molecules are happening. So, slowly, 30 years back, scientists, initially very few, but progressively more and more, started believing that you cannot produce life on Earth. The first prebiotic material of life, don't think aliens, prebiotic material of life, they are inanimate. They came onto the Earth through this tremendous amount of collision from space, and through the proper chemistry, proper environment, they thrived onto what is called life today. So life, or the seeds of life, came from space. Because many of the basic molecular building blocks of life form in deep space from materials that are ejected from stars. More than 100 molecules have been identified in the interstellar medium. And the primitive bodies like comets and asteroids may have deposited organic molecule in the early collision of the solar system, giving a pre-biological chemistry of all inner planets. And this theory, as you all know, goes by the name panspermia. Sperm is a seed of life, and pan means from any direction. So life has come, the seed of life has come from space. And a new subject area, it has become tremendously important, and it is called the subject of astrobiology. But there are extremophiles. Why should we consider only we need earth, we need water, we need oxygen? Because they are the nature's ultimate survivors. They are microorganisms which can thrive in a very unusual environmental condition, atypical temperature, atypical salinity, pressure, nutrient, oxygen, water, radiation levels, everything. So there are these psychrophils, thermophils, alkalophils, halophils, and acidophils. If you go to this Yellowstone National Park, you see this the sulfur springs. Temperature is 90 degrees centigrade, but you see bacteria thriving there, right? This is amazing. Then, if you go to the depth of the ocean, you find these giant tubes. And these giant tubes are nothing because the huge amount of material that is coming from the interior of the earth through thermal vents, they are very rich in nutrients and they thrive on these nutrients. So life can happen in a very peculiar circumstances. But till today, we haven't discovered life. These are all movie images, movie characters. But anyone there, the question is there, life in general is an universal phenomenon rather than confined to a stellar neighborhood. But life started forming only after the first few generations of stars have ended their lives. And intelligence, I think the necessity of abstract thinking is possible given the right time for evolution and right environment. And it is important that we are in the habitable zone. Our Earth is bang in the middle of the habitable zone of our sun. That is important. So people are searching for life, searching for the basic requirements present. Solvent like water, atom for bonding like carbon, complex molecules, and the right temperature for the water to remain liquid. Now, obviously, you have to give time to the system for the life to evolve. How many out there life possible? This is the famous Drake equation. It's a theoretical understanding, and using the Drake equation, which is a product of lot of factors, each factor giving some sort of a weightage to say number of solar type stars, fraction of stars that are planets, number of planets per star, fraction of those habitable planets, fraction of those life forms that evolve into intelligent species, and they have come out with a number. And amazingly, they have found that communicable civilizations, maybe in our galaxy, is not 0, not 1, but more than 1, more than 10. But till today, we haven't found the trace. But the trace is on, but they are trying to find out extrasolar planets, planets going around other suns. Till today, 4,187 confirmed planets have been confirmed in 3,105 stellar system, and 681 systems having more than one planet. So you see, it's an exciting future for us. And huge amount of resources, manpower, money, computational process is going on to understand the exoplanets or the extrasolar planets. Even a couple of years back, the Nobel Prize was given for this, right? To people who first went into a methodical understanding and discovery of extrasolar planets. So, my friend, we are looking through our telescopes. We are looking through our telescope, analyzing the light from distant parts of the cosmos and trying to analyze the light to find out the chemistry, the environment, the atmosphere, the pressure, the temperature of those regions. We're trying to look for another blue planet where there may be presence of liquid water. But till today, we haven't found any. But the search for extraterrestrial life is going on. Messages sent from Earth. This is from the Arecibo, where in a digitized version, the 10 decimal number, the 1 to 10 numbers, the elements, their mass number, a human figure, nuclides, nuclear reactions, these were all coded and they are being sent time to time. Till today, nobody has answered. The Voyager, which has crossed the boundary of the solar system, is carrying etchings on its body, is carrying a golden disk which has all the information, even the sounds of Earth. Amazingly, a Calcutta tram, the bell of a Calcutta tram, that sound is also included here. Huge number of radio images, radio signals, most of them garbage, but people have shifted for decades through this radio noise, radio signals coming from space, trying to find out whether there is any pattern, whether there is any periodicity, whether it will tell us it is not a natural process but sent by some intelligence. Till today, we have not found. There are dedicated satellites which are looking into the distant stars and whether there are planets going round. The Indian story is also there. A decade back, more than a decade back, I think 2.5 decades back, our ISRO sent a helium-filled balloon which went up to 41 kilometers above the Earth's surface. And when the Dewars flask with 41 chambers, when it came down, they analyzed and found 3 new bacteria: Janibacter hoeli, Bacillus histronensis, Bacillus aryabhat, not to be found on Earth, but beyond the level where the bacteria from Earth can go up and rise up. So the space is full of life. We know this Craig Jeff Venter, who declared that he has created life, but after scrutiny it was found he has kept the cell wall intact, taken out the material from inside and injected a sort of synthetic material, but the cell wall was taken from a living cell. So this mycoplasma mycoids, which he said is the formation of life on Earth, probably was shut down. My friends, stars going round itself, planets going round stars, stars dying to create new chemistry, all these things are telling us that there are possibilities of multitudes of life forms spread around the vastness of the universe. And thousands of scientists are doing research to find out about them. But till today, nobody has got a very clear picture of the origin of life or whether there is life elsewhere. So the search continues. And this search is telling us to move forward, to contribute to our common knowledge base, even at these difficult times, to take away our mind from this danger that we are facing, because we cannot control the danger. We cannot really get away from it, even if we try howsoever hard. So let our minds be productive. Let our minds be open and reach out to the stars and try to think in our mind through our research, through our thoughts, through our intuitions, through our philosophy to talk about the sky. Thank you very much. The material taken were mostly NASA resources, the Hubble Space Telescope, the space missions, and some of the diagrams and ray diagrams and all that on the internet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Duwari, sir, for your valuable speech. It's not only enriched us, but also provide new ideas, especially to our young generations to think over these matters, especially on the aspects of the origin of life. Now, sir, as we going under late according to our time schedule, we are unable to take a lot of questions, but there is one question asked by Dr. Shubhajit Bandyopadhyay. He asked, is there any chance of occurrence of life in Mars? Dr. Duwari, sir, please.
Till today, scientists, even theoretically, they have not found the proper atmosphere, the proper sort of conditions for life to be happening on the surface of Mars. Why I'm using the word surface? Because whatever inside Mars, we really do not know. Whether there is liquid water, we know there is water ice just beneath the surface, but whether there is liquid water and what type of life, right? Because there is hardly any oxygen in the atmosphere of Mars. So even if there is life, it may be totally different, but till today nobody knows. And I would have loved to answer questions, but I think the number of participants is not really very healthy one, only 44 participants as I can see. But thank you in any way for giving me this opportunity to talk.
There is the YouTube. In the YouTube, number of participants is 208, sir.
Oh, that's a very nice. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Okay.
sir. Thank you once again. Now,
So I'm leaving the meeting.
thank you, sir. Now, on behalf of the organizing committee, I just thanks Dr. Duwari for delivering his lecture. Now I request Sri Bishwajit Das to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Nobin Kumar Dhal. Dr. Bishwajit Das, please.
Everyone, it is my pleasure to introduce the speaker of this session, eminent speaker, academician, Dr. Nobin Kumar Dhal. Welcome, Dr. Dhal. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Dr. Dhal has 29 years of huge experience as a chief scientist in environment and of Minerals and Materials Technology, Bhubaneswar. He has an outstanding academic career throughout his life. He did his PhD in floristic and ethnobotanical studies from Utkal University under the guidance of late Dr. M. Brahmam. His research interest is mainly focused in the field of exploration of natural resources of Odisha, especially in floristic survey, ethnobotanical studies, biodiversity conservation, bioremediation, antimicrobial activities, and phytochemical screening of medicinal plants, and also utilization of solid waste as a substrate in agriculture. In his research career, he has already published more than 200 research papers in various national and international journals, and also successfully handled 30 research projects funded by different funding agencies. So far, 12 students have been successfully awarded PhD under his excellent guidance. He has made a huge contribution towards the floristic study of Malkanagiri and Nabarangpur district of Odisha. He always played a crucial role in sustainable development of biodiversity conservation of Odisha by establishing herbal garden, developing state-of-art of herbarium of 15,000 plant specimens, and also by the implementation of green technology by using selected hyper-accumulating plants for the removal of toxic heavy metals from the mining areas of Odisha. He has reported the occurrence of Corallodiscus, a new genetic record for Eastern Ghat of Odisha. He has edited a book that is Plant Science and also published a book, A Pictorial Guide to Fern of Similipal. He has been a fellow of several distinguished academic societies, including Society of Ethnobotany, Indian Association for Angiospermic Taxonomy, National Environmentalist Association, and Association for Plant Taxonomy. He has received several prestigious awards such as Dr. Mopuri Brahmam Memorial Award 2014 for his huge contribution in plant diversity conservation of Odisha, and NASI Swarna Jayanti Puraskar 2015 for best paper presentation by the National Academy of Science, Allahabad. So with this brief description and introduction, I would like to welcome Dr. Nobin Kumar Dhal to deliver his valuable lecture. Dr. Dhal, please. Dr. Dhal, please go ahead. Can you hear me?
Dr. Dhal, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I am hearing.
Is everything okay? Is everything okay?
Yes, okay. Am I audible? Are you hearing? Are you hearing?
Okay?
Yes, it is audible.
Some background is coming.
Yes, I am hearing. Yes. So should I start right now? Yes, I will start. Am I audible? Yes. Are you hearing?
Actually,
Yes, I am hearing.
विशेषण सब ओके আছে আপনার দিক থেকে নাই তো
হ্যাঁ
Yes.
Okay. Please start, sir.
Yes. So hello. Hello. Yes. Good evening, everybody. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Respected Principal of Ranaghat College and all the respected delegates and our organizing secretary, Dr. Sunit Mitra, to whom I know earlier, and all the dear participants. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk on biodiversity conservation on digital mode. So with this introduction, right now I am going to start my present topics.
অ্যাকচুয়ালি আমি কিছু ইকো শুনছি বিশ্বজিৎ স্যার, আপনি কি শুনছেন? স্যারের আওয়াজ কি ডবল শুনছেন? শোনা যাচ্ছে?
Hello.
বলুন। স্যারের আওয়াজ কি দুবার শোনা যাচ্ছে বা কোনোভাবে ওখান থেকে কোনো নয়েজ আসছে? হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, ওকে নবীন স্যার
Yes, yes.
বলুন, আপনারা একটু বলুন স্যার। আমি তো ভাবছি আপনার কি কোনো এক্সট্রা উইন্ডো খোলা আছে, ইউটিউব বা কিছু চলছে পাশে? স্যার আর ইউ প্লেইং এক্সট্রা উইন্ডো? এটা ইউটিউব ইকোটা আসছে। সুনীল স্যার কিছু বলছেন? সুনীল স্যার
না, কিছু বলছি না।
Hello.
হ্যাঁ, স্যারের তরফ থেকে ইকো আসছে না? এই এক্সট্রা আওয়াজটা কোথায় থেকে আসছে স্যার? স্যারের তরফ থেকে ইকো আসছে না?
ওটা কি আপনার ইউটিউব থেকে আসছে নাকি?
এটা আমার
ওটা কি ইউটিউব রেকর্ডিং? তার ইকোটা আসছে?
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, স্যার কি পাশে ইউটিউব চালিয়ে রেখেছেন?
গোবিন্দা, আপনার পাশে কি ইউটিউব চলছে? ইউটিউব রেকর্ডিং চলছে?
নেই।
সাউন্ড ফ্রম ইওর সাইড স্যার। নেই, ওকে। তাহলে দেখুন আপনার ওখানে কোনো প্রবলেম হচ্ছে।
YouTube नहीं है।
আমরা আমাদের মিউট করে দিচ্ছি মাইক্রোফোন।
আমরা তো খোলা আছে স্যার।
शेयर वीडियो এটা স্যার লিংক অ্যাক্টিভেট হলে পড়িও
সেখানে থাকার প্রবলেম।
আওয়াজ আসছে। সম্পূর্ণ ইউটিউবে সাউন্ডটাই আসছে।
আপনি সবটা মিউট করুন এক্সেপ্ট ডক্টর ঢল।
সবারই মিউট আছে,
বুঝতে পারবেন।
আচ্ছা আমি সবাইকে আবার মিউট করছি।
শুধুমাত্র ডক্টর ঢলকে ওপেন রাখুন।
সম্পূর্ণ ইউটিউবে সাউন্ডটাই আসছে।
আপনি সবটা মিউট করুন এক্সেপ্ট ডক্টর ঢল।
সবাইকে মিউট করলাম। অ্যাকচুয়ালি ডক্টর নবীন কুমার ঢলের স্যারের ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড থেকে আসছে নয়েজটা। স্যার আপনার ব্রাউজারে কিছু ওপেন আছে, কোনো উইন্ডো ওপেন আছে স্যার?
নো।
আমার ভয়েসটা অনেকক্ষণ পর আমি শুনতে পাচ্ছি। আপনার ব্রাউজারে কিছু ওপেন আছে, কোনো উইন্ডো ওপেন আছে স্যার?
নো।
আপনি কি আমাদের কথা দুবার শুনছেন? আমার ভয়েস অনেকক্ষণ পর আমি শুনতে পাচ্ছি। আপনার ব্রাউজারে কিছু ওপেন আছে, কোনো উইন্ডো ওপেন আছে স্যার? আপনি কি আমাদের কথা দুবার শুনছেন?
Their problem. They were not allowed us.
ଆପଣ କହିପାରିବେ
ସୁନିତ
ଆପଣ
ସାର୍
ଥିଲେ ଷ୍ଟାର୍ଟ ପାଇଁ କହିବେ
সুনীত স্যার শুনে যাচ্ছে?
হ্যাঁ বলুন, আমি বলছি, বলুন।
কি করা যায় এখন? বুঝতে
আপনি বলবেন তো।
কি লিভ করে জয়েন করবেন? স্যার কি লিভ করে একবার
হ্যাঁ,
জয়েন
জয়েন
করবেন?
করতে
আমি
এইভাবে কন্টিনিউ করবেন? কি করা যায় এখন?
Their problem.
কি বলছেন বলুন আমার।
এটা আমি দেখি
স্যার একবার লিভ করে জয়েন করুন। স্যার একবার লিভ করে জয়েন করুন। সাউন্ডের প্রবলেম আসছে না?
ডক্টর ঢলকে বলবো লিভ করে জয়েন করতে।
অডিওটা অন করতে
ইয়েস
তুমি তারপর করে কথা বলো সেটা বন্ধ করে
ডক্টর ঢল,
শোনা যায়
ডক্টর ঢল, you please leave once and then join again.
হ্যাঁ
You just leave once and then join again, sir. Hello, Dr. Dhal.
yes
You
yes I
just leave once and then again join, sir. There is some technical problem. You just leave once and then again join, sir.
স্যার কি হেডফোন ইউজ করছেন? স্যার আর ইউ ইউজিং হেডফোন স্যার? করেছেন স্যারকে আরেকবার হেডফোনটা ইউজ করে দেখুন।
আচ্ছা।
ওকে। স্যার আপনার কোনো অ্যানাউন্সমেন্ট থাকলে এই সময় দিতে পারেন। আপনার কোনো অ্যানাউন্সমেন্ট থাকলে এই সময়
অ্যানাউন্সমেন্টটা কি? আপনি তো গ্রুপে সবটাই দিয়ে দিয়েছেন। ওই ফিডব্যাকের ব্যাপারে যেটা ছিল সেটা আপনি পুরোটাই দিয়ে দিয়েছেন। আচ্ছা, dear participants, there is an announcement. You just listen carefully. এই প্রোগ্রাম চলাকালীন ফিডব্যাক ফর্মটা দেওয়া হবে। আপনারা ফিডব্যাক ফর্মটা প্রপারলি ফিল আপ করবেন। ফিডব্যাক ফর্মের ডাটা অনুযায়ী আপনাদেরকে সার্টিফিকেট দেওয়া হবে। ফিডব্যাক ফর্মটা ফিল আপ না করলে কিন্তু সার্টিফিকেটটা ইস্যু করা সম্ভব হবে না। All participants, please listen carefully. ফিডব্যাক ফর্মটা প্রত্যেকে আপনারা ফিল আপ করবেন for getting your certificate. Thank you. কি হলো, জয়েন করতে পারছেন না নাকি ডক্টর ঢল? কি হলো? হ্যালো, কেউ আছেন? তাপস বাবু?
হ্যাঁ বলুন।
ডক্টর ঢল জয়েন করতে, হ্যাঁ তো ডক্টর ঢল কোথায় জয়েন করতে পারছে, কোনো একটা প্রবলেম হচ্ছে।
আবার জয়েন করতে হচ্ছে। নেক্সট স্পিকার কেউ আছেন?
না, আর তো নেই, আজকে দুটো নেই।
ওকে, সো আমাকে ফোন নাম্বারটা হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে স্যার জয়েন করেছি। স্যার জয়েন। ওকে।
আচ্ছা।
I gave him presenter role. Bandwidth problem. কোনো connect হয় না।
ঠিক আছে।
कौन सा
हेलो डॉक्टर मित्र
Yes,
হ্যাঁ বলিয়ে নবীন দা।
sir.
ठीक एम आई ऑडिबल?
Yes, it is audible. Yes, you
Should
are
I
audible.
start or what?
Absolutely audible, Navinda.
No, should I start?
Yes, you can start. Yes, you can start. You can start.
My slides are audible.
Yes, slide is visible. CSIR IIMC at a
Visible.
glance.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
You start.
so right now I'm starting.
Yes.
Yeah. So good evening, everybody. Respected principal and Dr. Mitra of Ranaghat College and dear participants, respected resource persons. And I'm extremely thankful, Dr. Mitra, for giving me this opportunity to present my paper. In fact, my previous speaker spoke about that life in the universe. I will take in a different angle. Without plant we cannot survive. So my topic will be focus mostly on biodiversity conservation for sustainable development. All of us know that now we are moving with different problems, difficult situation. COVID-19 pandemic entered the globe. Everybody is in trouble. And recently, many funding agencies has opened their door, call for proposals for to mitigate COVID-19 pandemic. What will be the role of plants? So if you think that way, so plant has a different role, not only from that Ayurvedic point of view, but in our day-to-day life. Since I am from a research organization, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, New Delhi, and there are 38 laboratories, one laboratory in our Eastern India, in Bhubaneswar, that is the Institute of Minerals and Materials Technology, previously known as RRL. This is the view of my lab. Next, please. Yeah. This is the picture of our scientist. Next. And if you see the major environmental impacts, now we focus on air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution, and occupational health. And one important aspect is flora and fauna. And this flora and fauna, I am going to throw some light. Next. And those are the mission of my environment system department, where I am working as a chief scientist. We mostly focus on environmental pollution, different aspects: air pollution, solid waste utilization, bioremediation, bioleaching, biodiversity assessment. I am looking after the biodiversity assessment for last 29 years. We have a state herbarium located in our RRL, comprising more than 17,000 plant specimens collected from different forest pockets of Orissa. Next. And if you see the importance of the plants, if you go back to the Nobel Prize winners in medicine 2015, you see they have discovered the artemisinin from Artemisia annua, which is used for malaria. My point of telling, emphasizing the plant is that the malaria drug is coming from a plant. Next. And recently one of our sister laboratory, NBRI, has launched a drug, BGR34, that is from the diabetic drug, is nothing but from that plant resources only. Next. So with this, I hope a lot of importance we should give to our biodiversity so far the flora and fauna is concerned, because we know for food, cloth, shelter, everything we have to depend upon that plant. Hello. So if we will not conserve our natural resources surrounding with us, definitely the time is coming where we will lose all the plant resources, flora resources, fauna resources. So ultimately our life will not exist in the earth. Next. So coming to the bioresources, that bioresources we depend upon that to produce food, substantial products, and energy carriers. Those are bioeconomic and coming from the nature only. So bioresource pools are from the plant, microorganisms, organics, inorganics, we can say non-living and living. So categories are different: primary bioresources, secondary, tertiary, and finally nowadays we are giving emphasis on that value additions. So if we go to the value additions, how to get the material from the nature and go for the value addition, and how it can help us in our day-to-day life. So if you see the diversity, I should not say the definition of the biodiversity because many learned people are there in their audience through digital mode. The moment they see the slide, they can understand what is the difference between our human being. The same thing happens in the plants also. Yeah. So especially because I am from the state of Odisha, I have been working. So I will emphasize the uniqueness of the biodiversity of Odisha, where water crocodiles are there, olive riddles are there, chilica is there, and is a tourist place. Many people all over world, they love to come to Odisha. Yeah. And you know, the mangroves are there, and out of the Indian mangroves passes through West Bengal, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka, Goa, Maharashtra, and Odisha east coast is 480 kilometers, where we will see a lot of mangroves next to Sundarban. Next, this is the mangrove ecosystem. Friends, my point of showing all slides just to see how rich we are in biodiversity, enter India, enter world. Next. So this is some photographs I took from the mangrove areas. Next. Yeah. So this is with my students, I took some sampling slides, some soils and plants we collected from different parts of the mangroves. Yeah. The importance is that crocodiles, rainwater harvesting, and barrier to most important thing. You see, I want to highlight here: the mangroves are barrier to natural calamities, and we are very prone to different natural calamities like Fani, Hudud, and recently Amphan took a break in that West Bengal, and this is causing and another thing, we are getting ecotourism through revenue generation, and it helps to check the soil erosion.
Navin sir, can you hear me?
This is the entire scenario of Odisha, Eastern Ghats. So,
Navin sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing.
Sir, please stop your PPT and start it again. Actually, some problem occurred and your PPT not visible in YouTube Live. So, I also had a technical problem, so I join as a participant. I am host admin.
So what to do?
Please stop PPT and start it again. Your PPT not visible.
Oh, I see.
Please.
সুজন ভাই, উনি কি ওটা স্টপ করে আপনাকে শেয়ার করবেন, শেয়ার স্লাইড করবেন?
বলুন।
বলছি কি পিপিটিটা স্টপ করে ওটাকে শেয়ার স্লাইড করবেন?
হ্যাঁ, স্টপ করে শেয়ার করবেন। অ্যাকচুয়ালি আমার এন্ডেও কিছু নেটওয়ার্ক ইস্যু হয়েছে, সার্ভার ইস্যু আসছে, আমি সেই কারণে মোবাইলে জয়েন করলাম।
হ্যাঁ, মোবাইলে আমি দেখতে পাচ্ছি, ওই জন্য আমি এটা বুঝতে পারিনি। ইউটিউবে আপনি দেখছেন বলে আপনি দেখতে পেয়েছেন।
ইউটিউবে পিপিটিটা আসছে না, ওনার ভিডিওটা আসছে। উনি যদি স্টপ করে, আচ্ছা সিএসআইআর একটু জাস্ট তুমি চেক।
এবার দেখুন আমার মোবাইলে দুজনই আসছে। সুজন বাবু দেখুন তো আপনি।
No.
Sir, আপনার ইউটিউবে আসছে?
Sir, there are some issue.
Okay.
Slides are not visible in YouTube channel.
Yes. So because from our side, no problem.
Sir, now share it again. Robin sir, please share it again.
Again, we are sharing. We are in the sharing mode.
Yes, please share content. Actually, stuck in slide 1.
No.
Okay, sir. Let me check YouTube, sir.
YouTube may not come, I think.
Wait, 30 seconds. So,
नहीं संदीप संदीप you should not come into Kayenju. The office is in office.
Yeah.
yes, I think it's coming.
Tapaza, can you hear me?
I'm sure. Hey,
No.
Huh?
Not so.
Yes.
Okay, sir, your slides now visible, sir.
Hello.
Okay,
Sir,
Navin,
please.
it is visible now. Yes,
Your
please continue, Navin.
your,
Is it visible now? Your slides
Hello.
are visible now.
Visible now.
yes.
Yes, visible now.
So I will start now.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
you can.
From the beginning or from the beginning I will start. Hello.
Hello, you just start from that point where you are. It is the mangrove diversity. Talking about the mangrove diversity, we just start.
Yes. Let us go. Yes. Let us go. Yes. Let us go. Yeah. So this is the entire forest cover of Odisha, and Eastern Ghats covers 248 kilometers. And you see here that ecological sound forest where crown density is more than 40%, and ecological sensitive area where crown density is less than 40%, eco-fragile area, and mangroves. Mangroves occupy the important place in Odisha forests. Next. Yeah. You see this is the 6 biodiversity granaries where in that Gajapati district, Raigada, then Shimilipal, then Chilika, then mangroves, then Harisanga Nursinganath, where those are called the hot spots, and we can get a number of different type of medicinal plants as well as phytodiversity, and you will be surprised to know that some of the Himalayan plants are also we have seen in that Shimilipal. Next. And you see, so in phytogeography, Himalayan species are available in Shimilipal, Assam species also. Next. And if you see the statistical analysis, right now, Flora of Odisha was written by my colleagues, Dr. Saxon and Dr. Babam, and two stalwarts in Odisha taxonomy. They have reported 2,727 species, but now a lot of people have done already worked on that Flora of Odisha, and now the number is around 3,000. Next is, yeah, and you will see the what are the important plants that is critical endangered, vulnerable, and endangered. So those are Saraka, Suka, you can say Ashoka, Simplicus, Gardenia, Pureria, Cycas. Those needs immediate conservation. And this is the photograph I took with my students in visiting to different forest pockets of Orissa. You can see Malkanagiri, remote forest areas, and different blocks of Nabarangpur, then Sundargarh, then Kalahandi. You see the tribal people and forests. Next. Yeah, just next. Yeah. And my point of telling, when we discuss about the biodiversity conservation, I showed you some of the resources, and you see how to conserve. There are two types, in situ and ex situ. Our objective, then different methods are there, which are already in the book. I am not going to tell it, but at the end, now the government wants, if we are going to conserve either through in situ or ex situ, what products we are going to get it, and the products should be properly evaluated and then utilized by the common people of the world. So if this now we can do, or our younger generation can do, I hope the meaning of biodiversity for sustainable development can be fulfilled. Next. You see, another thing which I want to give emphasize, we are talking about sustainable development. How sustainable development is possible? It is possible through bioprospecting and this bioprospecting, where we can study systematically the genes, natural compounds, and their observation, biochemical methods, through genetic methods, without disturbing the nature. Yeah, you see, this is a very important thing I want to highlight here. This is a plant that is known as in Bhairuvan district, Shabai Ghasa, Eulalia bionata. Please see the plant growing in the field and the product in the market. This is called the sustainable development. Next. You see, this is another plant, Hibiscus subderifa. You see the fiber yielding plant, and the rope is used by the tribal friends of Odisha in day-to-day life. You see, this is the country liquor prepared by the people of the Eastern Ghats, and they usually depend upon these plants. They do not go for that foreign liquor or wine. They depend upon the country liquor only. And if you will be surprised to know that they do not have the disease. And you see, this is the minor forest products. Here, Surya robusta, and here that Kardi and Sal, and here that tamarind is each day, and here Sal leaf. Each day, those people are collecting and depending upon the forest resources for their livelihood. Next. You see, this is the plants where they prepare the baskets and the day-to-day used in our house, cut. These are fiber yielding plants. And surprisingly, I want to highlight here those schools, circles, these people are taking through this bahunia leaf. They have covered the bahunia leaf and they took the circle from the forest to sell in outside. Next. You see, this is the natural dyes developed from our lab. The two dyes which popularly used in our cloth, that is two dyes from the plants. One is terminal catapa and Murinda citrifolia. And this is lipstick, herbal lipstick is developed by the NBRI, and juice is also herbal juice is developed by NBRI, one of our sister laboratory. Next. And you see, this case study I took with the help of my students in a Kevika district of Odisha, where for chronic ear disease, they depend upon 4-5 plants. They collect the plants, they extract the juice, heat it, and put in the ear. And this is called that CSOM disease. And they do not depend upon that any synthetic drug. Next. And it is very important slide. Please have a look. And when we discuss about the revenue generation, Ranaghat district in Eastern Ghats of Odisha is important, where a lot of mango varieties plants are grown. And you see, they collect the mangoes, and how they prepare the jellies, and that mango juice, and throughout the year they use it. And I suggest to one of my students who recently got who 2 years back got the PhD degree from Kalyan University under the supervision of Professor Subhan Mukherjee, and I was the co-PI. And I told him that why didn't you report to that nearest collector so that they can have a mass multiplication for revenue generation. Next. And you see, this is in Odia. I can tell you, when we discuss about the biodiversity conservation, we are himself in destroying the hills. So when we are destroying the hills, mountains, how can we go for the conservation? Yeah, you see the signs of deforestation, how the people are taking the woods, cutting the trees, and deforestation. Globally, around 30 million hectares of forests are converted to other uses, including agriculture, and we are lost. So, if that way the trees will go, do you think that we are in right way to conserve our natural resources? Next. You see the Pudu cultivation, how we destroy the jungle. And global warming and climate change may have serious consequences. You know, after getting the industrializations, a lot of mining activities developed, and this mining activities causes the environmental pollution, which are departmental, which our department is actively participating. We are working in air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution, and my area now I am giving emphasis that contamination of soils, wherever the mining activity is going on, how to remediate that contaminated soil through plant and microbe interaction. Friends, I want to highlight the pollution is there, but how to eliminate, how to mitigate, what are the technology we have so that we can save our life. Yeah, to addressing the biodiversity loss, this is the most important thing. You know, and I also know this thing. And temperature rise, sea level rise, increase of extreme events, depletion of freshwater resources, increase of vector-borne disease, and economic and social instabilities. Those are some issues globally people have started working. And I also emphasize to all the audience joined through digital.
Yeah, we are on live. Please start, sir.
Yes, yes. So those are what I emphasize. Those are threats to biodiversity. Everybody should take care. We should take more R&D work. So far, this biodiversity threats to biodiversity is concerned. One is that habitat destruction. Another is the environmental pollution. Third one is the loss of traditional knowledge. So here I want to emphasize what are the top 10 challenges issues where we should think. One is climate change, waste management, biodiversity, water scarcity, deforestations, chemical toxic waste and heavy metals, energy, and science of genetics. Those are some of the issues where I collected from different sources. I want to highlight this, that those are some of the important issues where we should give full concentration and start some work, and so that we can contribute. Ultimately, we'll get benefit from the nature, and we can really do justice for the sustainable development. You see, this is wetland. I took some photograph. Next. And this is the infrastructure and laboratory facilities in IMT Bhubaneswar, where we have the herbarium, algal ratio pond, tissue culture lab, phytoremediation lab, greenhouse, and a TKDL lab. And I am going to the end of my slide. And I am extremely thankful to all of my PhD scholars, those who took a lot of pain and to complete their work. And their work, I have presented in different seminar symposiums. So always I feel that they are my heart, because without their help, without their work in the day and night in the lab, I would not have here in detail mode to say a few lines. Yeah, and really, if we want to have to some sustainable development, we have to love the nature and save the future. And before I conclude my talk, though it was disturbed many times, I was asked to stop it. But really, I am thankful to the organizer giving this opportunity. And before I leave, I request everybody, because whenever we are discussing about that COVID-19 pandemic or natural calamities or any damage to us or anything, first of all, it is coming to our mind the plant, because we are getting food, cloth, shelter, oxygen, everything we depend upon the plant. I can give you an example here. Even if we cannot live without oxygen a fraction of a second also, so we have to depend upon the oxygen. Even if we are put in ICU, without oxygen, we will not live. And this oxygen we get from the environment. So, my dear friends, let us keep in our mind to put a plant and nurture it wherever we are. Today, this may not give a fruit, but tomorrow definitely this will give a fruit. So, to summarize it, I want to emphasize wherever we are working, overnight we cannot do anything. We have to depend upon the local resources. What are the local resources are there? We have to see the local resources, local biodiversity, document it, publish it, and see that in what way this local diversity, in the sense of that uses of the plants, would help us to get that drugs from the plants or new compounds from the plants or new uses which we can bring for the benefit of the common man. This is number one. Number two, now we are emphasizing on that translational research, because because I am in the R&D organization, definitely I will give emphasis. We should work in such a way that our work should be in first track translational mode. Whatever work we are doing, at least common man should get benefit. Common man should understand that help, that users should come to them. And by the way, we should stick our time also. We should not take much time. Within the 24 months or 36 months, we should finish this thing. Different government agencies of India like DST, DBT is funding. Recently, if you will see that DBT call, there are a lot of calls are there to document the antiviral medicinal plants to mitigate the COVID-19 pandemic. The situation, the way it is prevailing, we do not know where the end. It may end within 2 months or it may take more than 1 year. But we have to live with the coronavirus. Day to day, we have to learn from the nature. If that way we will think how important the nature is and how importance we should give to the nature, so that we can extract from this nature, we can get some lessons from the nature, and how to self-independent, how to live, and and with the help of that our own practice, one habit, so that in future we should not invite any trouble. And another one thing I want to emphasize here, because whenever we think or plan to do some work, at least we should keep in our mind what should be our objective, what should be our product, or at the end, what we are going to do it. If our objective is clear cut, yes, this is the objective. With this objective, we want to do something. Then I think, we can come to a point where we can contribute something. So my point of emphasizing here, we have been we are attending a lot of seminar symposium, and a lot of seminar symposium are being conducted in different parts of the country. But my sincere request to all the organizers are that let us come to a conclusion, let us come to a recommendation, and so that how to implement, how to get in touch with the recommendations. At least 1 or 2 recommendations we should respond on the recommendations, and we should see that how this can help so that our future generations can get some benefit the way today we are discussing. Besides this, another one important thing which I want to tell within a fraction of seconds, whenever we are conducting any type of seminars, symposium, or anything, first we should see that how much benefit the local people, or you see, if we are going to conduct a seminar or symposium in Ranaghat College, you see that how much benefit the local students or local people should get benefit. In this way, I am extremely thankful to that organizers, Dr. Sunit Mitran, principal of the Ranaghat College, for conducting such type of seminar where we can get benefit. You can know that the impact of seminar, the impact of symposium on the local bodies, on the students, on the colleges and local areas, so people can understand what is going on and how we are going to get the benefit. With this small deliver of my talk, I really thankful to Dr. Mitra and other people for giving this opportunity. Though it is too late, because in the Bhubaneswar that night curfew will start at 9 p.m. But I told Dr. Mitra earlier for giving this opportunity. Thank you for discussion. Okay, Dr. Mitra.
Okay, thank you, Govinda, for your lucid lecture, which open some new vistas to our young generation students, and they can opt ethnobotany as their field of research in their future life. Not only that, they also rethink over the Agenda 21, the oath we take in 1992 Rio Conventions, which also you projected through your lectures. Thank you. Thank you again, Govinda. Thank you,
Sunit.
And accept our proposals. Thank you. Thank you, Navin.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. With this, we conclude our first day's webinar program. Next day is the second day of our webinar, and we will start it at 6:30 p.m. Till then, good night, everybody. Good night. Thank you.
থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার, এন্ড করলাম।
Good night.
হ্যাঁ, বলুন শুরু।
এন্ড করলাম।
হ্যালো স্যার।
হ্যাঁ, এন্ড করুন।
কেউ কিছু বলছেন? দীপ ঘোষ কিছু বলছেন?
হ্যালো, কেউ কিছু বলছেন কি? দেখুন।
হ্যাঁ স্যার, বলছি যে আমার
হ্যাঁ,
একটু
বলুন।
কনফিউশন, যেহেতু দুদিনের ওয়েবিনার, আপনি প্রথমে শুরুতে বলছিলেন যে ফিডব্যাক ফর্ম ফিল আপ করতে। স্যার, ফিডব্যাক ফর্ম কি আসবে না কাল?
আপনি কে বলছেন? আমি প্রপারলি শুনতে পাচ্ছি না। আমি প্রপারলি আপনাকে শুনতে পাচ্ছি না।
স্যার, আমি দীপ ঘোষ বলছি। বলছি যে স্যার, আপনি এই কনফারেন্সের শুরুতেই বলেছিলেন যে ফিডব্যাক ফর্মটা ফিল আপ করতে।
দীপ বাবু, আমি প্রপারলি আপনাকে শুনতে পাচ্ছি না। আপনার কথাটা কেটে কেটে আসছে আমার কাছে।
সুনীত স্যার,
হ্যাঁ বলুন।
শোনা যাচ্ছে আমার কথা? উনি জানতে
হ্যাঁ,
চাইছেন
তারপর
ফিডব্যাক ফর্ম
হ্যাঁ,
আজকে
বলুন,
দেওয়া হবে
বলুন।
না কালকে? ফিডব্যাক ফর্মটা আজকে দেওয়া হবে না কালকে?
আপনি তো এটা নোটিশে দিয়েই দিয়েছেন যে কোনো সময় ওটা আপনি চ্যাট বক্সে দেবেন, তাই তো?
হ্যাঁ, ওটা কালকে দিনের শেষে দেওয়া হবে। কালকে শেষে দেওয়া হবে।
ডিউরিং দ্য ফার্স্ট লেকচার করুন ওটা। আগামীকাল ডিউরিং দ্য ফার্স্ট লেকচার আপনি ওটা করুন।
ওকে, থ্যাংক ইউ।
হ্যাঁ স্যার,
এন্ড করলাম। আমি সুজন বলছি স্যার, আমি সুজন।
হ্যাঁ।
আমি সুজন। তাপস বাবু আছেন? হ্যাঁ তাপস দা বলুন।
আছি স্যার, বলুন। কথাটা কিছু শুনতে পাচ্ছি না। টেলিফোন করবো আপনাকে?
ওকে, এন্ড করলাম। এখানে এন্ড করলাম। তাপস দা ফোনে কথা